after England, I think that there are much more modern, better laws that we should probably adhere to.
Interesting, because like I have people from the UK who are disagreeing with that actually, and they're not Muslims.
The fact that some people disagree on things is not evidence that it's true. There's a reason civilized countries don't enact Sharia law, because it's terrible.
Well, that's a subjective
because
claim
we're
as
not
well.
Muslim. It's not because it's terrible. What are you talking about?
No, it's because it's terrible. Like objectively, when implemented Sharia law has less social benefits than secular societies. So secular societies are objectively better in moral values and sociological values and economic growth, technological developments. Like Islam has the lowest amount of Nobel Prizes of, I think, any major religion.
Well, isn't like the suicide rate in secular countries hella high, but Islam is very low?
Sort of, but the death rate is higher in Muslim countries. So like, I don't really care about the suicide rate. I care about the overall death rate.
The suicide is more concerning to me.
Why? That doesn't make any sense.
It's a psychological problem. There's something wrong mentally.
But if people can survive for long enough to kill themselves, that's better than if they die prior to the fact that they even have the ability to think about their own lives. So it's still better to be able to kill yourself than to die at an early age so young you don't even have the chance to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's again like different where we disagree.
What do you just, so like if everyone starves to death, there is zero suicide. Is that better than a society where most people don't starve to death?
No.
So obviously,
but I'm just saying I wouldn't advocate people to like, to commit suicide for sure.
Well, that's not the point. So the point is that is using suicide as a basis to establish which society better a rational statistic to use? And the answer is no, because I can make a society with zero suicide if I just literally cause everyone to starve to death, but that doesn't mean that it's a good society because it has zero suicide. So the rate of suicide isn't the metric that we should be using to establish what's a good society, because there are other ways to cause people to not commit suicide other than being a good society.
Yeah.
Wait, which Sharia country were you referring to in that thing you cited earlier, like 2 minutes ago?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You were saying like in this specific country or something, like there's a percentage chance of something, I don't even know, but which country are you referring to?
Which countries do you use as an example for Islamic Sharia? Like which countries do you hold up as an example?
Yeah, you said like the unsuccessful or something.
What? So yeah, the countries, all of them. So literally pick any Islamic country you want, and I can pick any secular country, and they have higher levels of education, welfare, social security, happiness index rates, life expectancy. Pick anyone you want. I don't care. I can just go with any secular society, majority atheist, and I'm going to win.
Saudi Arabia.
Finland wins. Norway wins. Iceland, Denmark, Norway. I think I said Norway.
Wait, Saudi. Wait, how does the UK win? And what's like standard? Like, what are you talking about?
Life
like
expectancy,
in health,
education, literacy rates, social welfare. I don't know about poverty, but the other ones I know for sure.
Yeah, are these due to religions, or is this due to other like situations, like geopolitics and other circumstances?
Well, those are all connected, but if we take other ideologies that have a similar socioeconomic standing, the ideologies that don't have Islam do better typically.
That's not the religion. That's not the religion.
What does that mean? The religion is just the ideology people believe in. Whether or not you think it's the true religion makes no difference.
Yeah, but like, I don't think it's like, the main reason to say like this country is better than another country. I don't think it's the religion, because like Muslims are everywhere.
That doesn't make a difference. Like, so there's studies that show that religious beliefs have impacts on certain actions, lower rates of crime, lower rates of drug use, et cetera, et cetera. But Islam has the least positive impact and a negative impact on many aspects. So we've actually literally studied this. So yes, certain religions have a negative aspect that does not in any way promote growth.
Yeah, so like you're saying like religions to prevent people like to take drugs and smoke and all like these bad habits that you mentioned.
What about him?
Like you said, the religion prevent or put these rates down for like drug addicts and smoking
Yeah.
and all. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, right?
Yes, but the bad thing is like lower women's rights, lower freedom of thought, lower education. So the fact that it does good in some respects doesn't make up for all the bad it does in every other respect.
How much time left, guys? Oh, 2 minutes, right?
Probably.
That's what it says for me. I don't know.
If it says that for you, then it says for everyone.
Yeah. You just get jihadist next time.
Thing is, I don't want to turn anything into debate here. So just trying to, having good discussion.
Discussion and
topic?
debate are the same thing.
I mean, I prefer like, discussion as just talking, not necessarily like throwing arguments that requires responses. So
Okay, TJump, you ready for
Yeah.
the thing?
Yeah, where do I go?
Just let me one
wait, is
second.
Abstra's here?
Yeah, he's ready.
All right.
Should I go to the stage?
Yeah, let me just start it. No one go until we start moving people. Ashraf, you there?
Musa.
I don't see him.
Just
Did you guys see that the Muslim Lantern was too afraid to let me on his show?
who that?
No, I don't think he was too afraid, man. I was watching a stream.
He was. That's the typical response when someone's
He
too
had a
afraid.
really good reason, bro. He had a really good reason.
What was
He
that?
said if he invites people, okay, I'll give you the reason.
Sure.
He said that if he invites people that are arrogant, that just want to argue, that don't want to listen, he's gonna take the spot of somebody who actually wants to listen.
Well,
And
see,
after
that's
you
his
left him,
arrogance.
he had
Like,
a really good conversation with somebody.
well, no, see, that's the arrogance of his position, the hypocrisy. Because all I do is
How's that
academic
hypocrisy?
research. He's too foolish to actually let on someone who's competent to actually debate. He only wants to let on people who have no qualifications whatsoever, so that he doesn't look like an idiot. That's his own fear. Like, because I talk with professors all the time, and we learn things when discussing with one another all the time. Problem is, he's just a fool, and so he's too afraid to let on someone who's more educated than him. And that's the Muslim response typically. Say, oh, they're just arrogant and they don't want to listen. No, it's that we're actually educated and know how to actually have a dialogue on the topic.
Okay, so what was the benefit out of your conversation with him? If he did invite you on and all that.
Intellectual discussions about evidence and arguments for the existence of God.
So are you actually opening to convert?
Sure. Like if you provide evidence, for sure.
This isn't the place for me to be reciting Quran. So
Okay, where's Abstra?
okay, by the way, TJump, I hope you don't mind if I'm gonna give if I give in terms of like Abstra's opening, I might give a little bit of an introduction as to who Abstra is specifically, because a lot of people might not know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, do you want me to introduce you as well? I don't think you need an introduction.
No,
but,
okay.
I mean, do you want one?
No.
Okay. Oh, no worries. Huh. He will be here soon, inshallah. He's just praying to our Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. Do you know who that is, TJump? You know who Allah is?
The made up imaginary being who doesn't exist, that one? Is it the one that drowned the world for imaginary crimes?
Yeah.
Did
Exactly.
he send the bears to
The-
kill the 40 people for making fun of the bald guy? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Wait, isn't that the Bible?
Wait, you guys,
Yeah.
you realize that the Quran follows the Bible, right? It accepts the things
There we go.
in the Old Testament.
Yeah, of course. When every single letter. Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Wait, so do you not think the writings of Moses happened? You don't think Moses was real and he wrote that stuff? You don't think so?
Yeah, 100%. Nah, man. I mean, who is Moses? Am I right? Am I right? That's exactly what I'm implying. Thank you. Thank you, TJump. I think what's ironic is like, you're called TJump and you jumped the gun there. You see what I did there? Like jump as in like, you know.
I jumped
Um,
into the facts of your religious belief, which is based on the Old Testament.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Would you like me to educate you on that one so that you can go to like any of the experts in any of the fields?
Please.
Yeah.
Please educate me, TJump. I know nothing about Islam. Please.
Clearly. Quran
Yeah.
based on Old Testament.
What? The Quran is what?
Yes.
Okay. That's nice. That's nice, TJump.
Great. So you admit I'm right.
I'm really
That's all
excited.
you can do is laugh at how silly your beliefs are. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
it's okay. So it's not like I'm laughing at like how funny or silly my beliefs are. I'm laughing because you're a silly goose, TJump. You're a silly little goose.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I debunk your beliefs and you can say nothing but laugh in response, that's a pretty good indicator that your belief is terrible. It's solid.
Yeah, 100%.
Solid.
Yeah. TJump, relax, bro. I know you're gonna have a debate in like a couple of minutes, and you're gonna get destroyed. Like you're gonna get dragged through the den. But like, chill, bro.
Sure.
Just calm down. I'm just trying to lighten the mood.
Here's
like,
here's an academic journal. Islam recognizes that Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus are all true
Okay,
messengers of the God sent to guide
Okay.
humanity. So, oh wait, I was right. Oh my God, science wrecked.
No, you're right.
Yep.
Okay, Hashim, the thing is.
What the hell did I walk into, bro?
No, so basically, I was just kind of like,
Well, here's another
just
academic
chilling.
source. Secondly, Muslims believe in the previous scriptures of their original forms opposed to the current ones. This reason change undoubtedly occurred in the Bible and the Torah. Oh, they do. Oh, you're wrecked. Wrecked, son.
No.
Oh,
God.
Hashim,
oh,
خلاص Hashim.
Okay. So yeah.
Good.
So, I'm aware that TJump is going for like 30 seconds. Because he has, no argument by which he's going to stand on for his opening. So
that doesn't make any sense. Like the fact that it takes
I'm joking.
a short amount of time to make an argument doesn't mean there is no argument.
I'm
Like,
joking.
could you learn
Bro,
basic
guy,
philosophy? It seems to be a problem with
I'm
a lot of the Muslim
joking.
debaters who don't actually
I'm
know
joking.
anything about philosophy. It's like
Mhm.
even Aaron Ra considers the Muslim apologist to be a joke compared to the Christian.
Bro, TJump. Habibi, just start. I don't want to hear this.
Wait, is this being recorded? I hope this is recorded.
Yes, it is being recorded. Can we start now?
Okay, thank God.
Can we get the Joker off the stage and do some actual conversation?
Yeah, whatever.
Let's start, TJump.
What?
Stage is yours.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay, so the debate topic is, which is a better explanation of the necessary being, God or a quantum field? There is no evidence for any properties of a conscious entity existing outside of space-time. There is lots of evidence of fields in physics existing outside of space-time. Therefore, there's no conceptual reason to think that a conscious entity could be the cause of the universe, whereas we have lots of evidence to think that quantum particles can. So to say that a conscious entity did it is equivalently justified as saying that there is a magical pineapple that created the universe. So belief that there is a conscious entity is equivalent to belief in Santa Claus, unicorns, fairies, leprechauns, or any other belief that hasn't been demonstrated to exist independent of our imagination. Until there are any novel testable predictions that show consciousness can exist outside of space-time, there is no reason to believe that there is a God with a mind that created the universe.
Okay, and is that the end of your opening?
Yep.
Okay. So, okay, now it's going to be Abstra's opening. I think it's 15 minutes. Abstra does have slides that he sent to me that he would like to
Can you
present. If anyone wants to join this, I guess. So, okay. For any of those who aren't aware of who Abstra is, so he's gonna make he made these slides basically kind of like presenting his case regarding quantum fields being necessary beings and things like that instead of God or whatever. For those of you who don't know who Abstra is, I'm just going to give a quick introduction. Abstra is also known as السيد المجدد الحافظ الفقيه العالم مولانا صاحب العلم والتقوى الإمام المسلمين في التوحيد والعدل اعتزال الشيخ الإسلام ثقة الإسلام في الإيمان واليقين الشيعي الرافضي الغالي. Like, okay, well, like, not like in terms of ghulu, like in terms of like Shia ghulu, but like in terms of like linguistically, like if you were to say like, you know, into ghali, like, you know, I love you, like, you know, very loved person, you know, like anyway, al-Alawi al-Hanafi, like, you know, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya alayhi salam, you know, like the son of Imam Ali, because like, you know, he's a descendant of Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, not like anything in regards to Abu Hanifa. So sorry, all of you Sunnis out there. He is al-Muwahid al-Muslim al-Habib al-Mahbub al-Mu'azzam al-Azim al-Hakim ala al-Hukama الذي بلغ الحكمة بجمال modest ponens الأمين الأسترابادي Muhammad, also known as Abstra underscore. But first, a word from our sponsor. Apostolic.
Yeah, the stream is not working, bro.
Here we have a testimony from someone who regularly uses Apostolic Islam. Okay. What does that say? Apostolic Islam. Apostolic Islam.
While Hoshin fixes up a stream, I just want to take out the time to thank the sponsors for this debate, Apostolic Islam. I've been using Apostolic Islam since 2013, and ever since I've started using Apostolic Islam, I've lost every debate I've ever had with the Christian. But because I need the money, you know, please subscribe to Apostolic Islam. Okay, so today we're gonna start off. I'm gonna start off with a general outline. First, I'm gonna give an argument for the necessary being. Then I'm gonna give an argument for why quantum fields have properties which would take away from them being necessary. Then I will define God, and I will show how the necessary being proved by my argument is God under a theistic paradigm. So if you guys could look at VC text, I'll post the argument there for God. So first of all, let's get some definitions clear. So there are three basic definitions you need to know for this argument. The first one is a BCCF, or a big conjunction of contingent facts. I define a BCCF as the conjunction of all atomic contingent propositions. So an atomic proposition is pretty much just a proposition which cannot be broken down further. So if I say an apple is red and the sky is blue, that's not an atomic proposition. But an apple is red, that's an atomic proposition, because I can't break that down into a further proposition. It's like the most basic proposition I can form. The second argument, the second definition you need to know is a contingent being. I define a contingent being as a being to whom existence is not necessarily predicated. After that, you need to know the definition of a necessary being, which is a being to whom existence is necessarily predicated. So the argument is really simple. It's as follows. Premise one, if the big conjunction of contingent facts is contingent, then it requires a cause. The premise two is the big conjunction of contingent facts is contingent. The first conclusion is therefore it requires a cause. The third premise is the cause is either necessary or contingent. Premise four is if the cause is not included in the big conjunction of contingent facts, then it is not contingent. Premise five is the cause is not included in the big conjunction of contingent facts. Premise six is therefore it is not contingent. And notice I haven't used any controversial premises so far, right? The first premise I've used is if BCCF is contingent, then it requires a cause. The argument for this is really simple. Anything contingent requires a cause. BCCF, because all its conjuncts are contingent, then the BCCF is also contingent, so it requires a cause. Premise three is pretty much just a modal axiom. Things that exist are either necessary or contingent. Premise four is again really simple. Causes are extrinsic to their effects. So if the cause if it's causing BCCF, it cannot be included within BCCF. So conclusion 2 is that therefore the cause is necessary. Premise 7 is, if there are two necessary beings, then there must be an aspect that distinguishes them. So if you have any two things and you call them distinct, there must be an aspect in one which fails to be true of the other. Otherwise, if they have all the same aspects, all the same properties, they are the same thing, pretty much. Premise 8 is distinguishing aspect is not necessary. And the reason for that is, if it was necessary, it would be shared by both of these necessary beings. So conclusion 3 is, therefore this distinguishing aspect must be contingent. Premise 9 is the necessary being can't be contingent. Conclusion 4 is, therefore there's only one necessary being. So this argument so far has proven that there is a necessary being who's the cause of all the contingents, either directly or indirectly, that exist within the universe. It has proved that this necessary being is only one. There are no multiple necessary beings. And this is pretty much all I need to refute the idea of quantum fields being necessary. So next, I'm gonna attack why exactly quantum fields can be necessary. What's the reason, right? So there are three main things which I can point out. The first thing is quantum fields undergo change. So since change is normally it's a loss or gain of properties or actualization of potential, or however you want to define it, atoms getting that won't apply to quantum fields, but atom getting rearranged. Under all of these definitions, there is going to be a property which is not true at one time and it's true at another time, right? So if quantum fields were necessary, right, they would have all of these properties across all temporal periods, which these quantum fields don't have, so therefore they're not necessary. The second one is quantum fields borrow energy from an outside vacuum, right? So that makes them, like, vacuums can causally, and energy can causally affect these quantum fields. So anything which can be affected by something extrinsic to it, right, must have some sort of contingency in it, right? Some sort of capacity for movement or of change, which would make it contingent. The third property, which I point out, is that quantum fields have accidents that occur in them. So virtual particles which subsist within these quantum fields, that come in and out of existence within these quantum fields. So I mean, this third property, I mean, it's fine if TJump denies it. If he denies all accident essential distinction, I mean, that's fine. But traditionally, for people, most philosophers that I've read recently in modern philosophy, since they accept that there are subsistence relations, right, between one thing and another thing, this property for most people will be an actual property. But if TJump wants to reject it, that's fine. That's his choice. Okay, after that, I just want to talk about God, why this argument would lead to an idea or conception of God. So I define God as a being that transcends the universe and is the reason for any contingent thing's existence in the universe, right? Either directly or indirectly. The reason I don't include his attributes and omni properties within this definition is because generally theists are pretty divided on the subject, right? So for example, if you're, depending on your other metaphysical views, so for example, if you believe that the future is open, you're not going to say that God is omniscient in the sense that a Thomist would say that God is omniscient, right? Similarly, if you're like Sadriyan, you're going to say that, oh, the knowledge of God is knowledge by presence. But again, if you're a Thomist, you're going to say, no, the knowledge of God is causal activity. There's many distinct views on what exactly it means to be omniscient, what exactly it means to be omnipotent. So that's why I've not included it in the definition, because I won't be able to defend all these positions simultaneously as they contradict each other. There's a range of opinions you can take. Generally, if you're convinced of theism, you can be a open theist. You can believe that the future is open. And there's many other positions. There are people that deny. Recently, like in response to the problem of evil, this is a really dumb way to approach it, but there are people who deny God's omnipotence, and they're theists. So these omniproperties are not necessary for commitment to theism. That's why I'm not included in the definition. Okay. But this exact definition, which I'm sure like most theists would agree that, maybe if you're like a pantheist or panentheist, you would not agree, but most theists traditionally would agree that God is a being that is extrinsic to the universe and is the reason for the contingent things in the universe, right? He causes them through some sort of causal activity, whether that's direct or indirect. As God is the cause of the big conjunction of contingent facts, he cannot have any aspect of contingency, right? Which it would have, like God would have, if he was part of the universe, right? Since I think like everybody would, it's a pretty uncontroversial claim that there's some parts of the universe are contingent. And the second thing is like God, according to the argument I've proposed, or the necessary being, would be the reason for the existence of the big conjunction of contingent facts, which would mean that God is a fundamental reason for the existence of contingent things in the universe. So the necessary being fulfills my definition completely of God. So I think like that's a pretty good case of why you should accept theism over quantum fields. So yeah, we can move on to the discussion period now.
Okay. So this is just gonna be like a 45-minute open discussion between TJump and Abstra. So yeah, I mean, Bismillah, you can begin.
All right. So the first thing is necessary being. Philosophy is presupposes the PSR. PSR is rejected by most philosophers. Most philosophers also reject the necessary contingent distinction. There's no evidence that the necessary contingent distinction corresponds to reality whatsoever. So it's something that somebody made up in their head. So your first problem is you have to demonstrate that there is actually such a thing as a necessary existent property that exists in reality somewhere. You haven't. You just made it up. It's like say, I can imagine the pink farting unicorn, therefore pink farting unicorn. It doesn't work that way. You have to give evidence that this idea you've come up with exists in reality independent of just your own imagination. You haven't done that, which is why it's rejected by every physicist, the vast majority of philosophers, and pretty much everybody in academia doesn't accept the necessary contingent distinction as anything more than something a guy made up with no evidence. So that's the first problem.
Okay. Are you finished?
Well, it was wanted to go one point at a time, not just throw a bunch of stuff at you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's fine. So I'm not sure what you mean. The necessary contingent distinction is used in modal logic all the time. It's used by like Saul Kripke. His books are studied all the time. There are tons of articles on it.
He's using something completely different from what you are. So a necessary being in typical philosophy just means a being that exists in all possible worlds.
Being that exists in all possible worlds.
Right, but that doesn't include, it can change as much as it wants. It can have any set of properties it wants. It can be fluctuating. Any of those can be fine. So in typical philosophy, it doesn't matter all that nonsense you added. That has nothing to do with the necessary being used by typical philosophers. That's Aquinian nonsense. So a pineapple can be a necessary being if it exists in all possible worlds. So the only requirement for a necessary being is that it exists in all possible worlds. It can change. It can have multiple parts. There can be multiple necessary beings. You've added all these extra property traits to necessary beings based off Aquinas, which nobody accepts.
Okay. So do you accept that there are things? Okay, first of all, let's like just define necessity and possibility, right? Instead of like separating it from a necessary being and a contingent being. So contingent, I would say, is when one thing is only possibly affirmed of another thing, right?
Sure.
Like
Sure.
if I say this, I mean, like if I say like this car is red, this car is only possibly red, right? Under some possible world, it could be black.
No, not necessarily. So if necessitarianism is true, there's only one possibility, and that car can only necessarily be red.
Yeah, but I'm guessing you're not necessitarian.
Right, but the point is that you've made up this distinction that you think is real, which there's no evidence it is real. There are many different possibilities of the way the world could be. You've assumed one way, and then based on that assumption, you've made up these properties that you assume were there, but you would need evidence
Yeah,
to
but
show that they're
wait,
there.
wait. That's not the question I asked.
What?
That's not the question I asked. You're going off on a tangent.
No, I was a direct answer. So you asked contingent things are things that are prerequisite on previous things, essentially. And I said, no, not necessarily, because there could be no such things. Everything could be independent. Every point in time could be its own independent existent thing, like in the B theory of time. So no, that's wrong. Contingent things are only real if you demonstrate they exist and that these other models are wrong, which you haven't done. You have no evidence.
Wait, I haven't. Wait. I'm not talking about that.
What?
Look, again, I'll clarify it once again. Contingency, right, is when one thing is only possibly affirmed of another thing, right? That's like the very basic formulation of contingency. It's a relation between the subject
that
and
is
the
wrong.
predicate.
That is one interpretation of what contingency is. There are many interpretations. Like there are many interpretations where there is no causality. You have one interpretation. That's it. There's nothing special about it.
Okay, so how would you define contingency then?
There's lots of ways to define contingency. I don't, because it's not a real.
I'm not talking about metaphysical. I'm not talking about metaphysical contingency.
Well, there's
right?
no difference.
I'm just talking
what
about.
is the other kind? Was there like an epistemic contingency, a methodological contingency? What
There's
other
many.
kinds of
There's
contingency?
many different kinds of contingency,
Sure, like
but
what?
I'm talking about
Like what?
contingency and there's metaphysical, there's logical, there's empirical.
What is
Sorry,
empirical contingency?
epistemic. Sorry. There's epistemic, and there's many other types of necessities and possibilities.
Well, let's skip this. What is your evidence that any of these correspond to reality?
That any of these correspond to reality. So you're asking, how do I know epistemic possibility corresponds to reality?
Well, no, the metaphysical contingency that you're actually arguing for. I don't care about epistemic contingency. Is just a definition.
Okay, yeah, but I'm just. Okay. Look. Again, I'll repeat.
No, skip all of that nonsense. I want evidence.
I'll repeat.
Let me give you my
Yeah,
evidence.
I'm
My
giving you
is,
evidence, dude. Like if you stop talking and listen for a second,
you're asking me questions about definitions.
Evidence.
That's what you're doing. Like evidence is novel testable predictions. We have novel testable predictions of quantum fields. They exist. They can cause space-time. They can exist outside of space-time. We have no such thing for necessary beings, for conscious entities doing anything, for brains outside of space-time. None of that. So that's evidence. Novel testable predictions of the Casimir effect. Boom, I have evidence you don't. All you have is a bunch of funny word games of your imagination. What I want to know is how do you get that imaginary nonsense goo to show it corresponds to something outside of your own imagination? That's the part I'm interested in.
Yeah, okay. So can I talk now?
Sure.
And you don't interrupt. Is that fine? Okay.
Well, maybe if I don't understand something, I'm going to interrupt. Be like, that doesn't make any sense. But go ahead.
Yeah, just wait till I finish, and you can ask me to clarify. Okay. So again, possibility, right? Distinct from possible being. Possibility is just a type of relation, right? When something is only possibly affirmed of something else. So if you take the idea of a human, right? A human can possibly be black, possibly be white, right?
No.
It's unconditioned towards
Well,
either.
it could be necessary, but I don't care about these word games. What's the evidence?
How is that a word game? Like, what do you mean by evidence?
Things that can differentiate imagination from reality. That's what I mean by evidence. I want to know, how do you show you have an idea in your head, and I want to know that is true outside of your head and not just in your head. Now, the way I do that is novel testable predictions. Go ahead.
No, listen. If you let me follow all the way through, you'll see how this is not just a word game. But anyways, you said that this is not necessary, that a human cannot possibly be white and possibly be black.
Yeah, it's possible that it's necessary. Necessitarianism is true, then there is no possibility. Zero possibility. Nothing is possible. There is only necessarily everything is necessary.
Okay.
But again, what does this have to do with evidence? Like, what is your evidence?
Are all counterfactuals possible? Are all counterfactuals impossible?
Who knows? Depends on which model you use. What's your evidence?
Yeah, depends on which model. Okay, under the Leibnizian model,
no.
Your
under
evidence?
the Spinoza model, this is word games. What's your evidence? Tell me the evidence.
Bro, I mean, you're saying under necessitarianism.
Why are you talking about necessitarianism? What's your evidence? Stop talking about necessitarianism.
Because you brought it up.
Yes, it's an answer to one of your previous questions, which is a word game, which has nothing to do with your evidence. What is your evidence that God is better than the necessary being? Don't bring up necessitarianism. I don't care. I don't want to know. Don't ask me questions about possibility. There's lots of interpretations. What is your evidence?
Yeah,
God is
you're-
better than necessary.
See, TJump. If you're bringing up necessitarianism, right, and then when I
What-
counter your point, you're
You
telling
didn't
me, well,
counter
no, I don't
anything.
really
You
care
didn't
about
counter anything.
necessitarianism.
Focus on your evidence. What is your evidence? Stop bringing up irrelevant things. I can address all of your nonsense.
No, you said wait, hold up.
What is
You said-
your evidence?
You said
Stop talking about what I said.
You said
Talk about the argument. What is your evidence?
I'm talking. The argument is within a discussion, and we're having a discussion.
No. That's a
right?
word game. That's the whole word game nonsense I talked about. You're not actually addressing the topic. I did. I'll do it again.
Oh,
Evidence
bro,
for the
if
quantum
you-
field is novel testable predictions. It can be demonstrated to exist. You have no evidence.
Okay. Let's go down this route.
Okay.
Let's go down this route.
Sure.
Okay. What's your proof that's necessary?
I don't have any proof it's necessary.
Congratulations. This debate is done.
No, I have evidence. I don't need proof.
Okay. What's your evidence that quantum fields are necessary?
The hypothesis that quantum fields are the fundamental nature of reality makes novel testable predictions, which are confirmed before we knew them, and which is evidence that it's true. The hypothesis is true.
Okay. By necessary, you mean that it exists in every possible world.
Yep. Yes. Did you hear me? Yes.
Okay. How does them being fundamental for this world prove that they're fundamental for every world?
What that doesn't prove anything. Again, evidence and proof are separate things.
Okay.
Evidence is something that increases the probability.
You're making an inference from them being fundamental in this world.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
To being fundamental in every world.
That's how evidence works.
Yeah, that's called the proof, bro.
No,
that's called the proof.
No, that's,
so what's your
that's,
proof?
that's not a proof. A proof exists in math and logic, which shows deductively that something must necessarily be true given some kind of logical formal system. This is not a proof. This is evidence. Science does not deal in proof. Science deals in evidence.
Okay, but that's what I'm asking you. You're saying that they're necessary.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
This is a claim about all possible worlds.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm asking you, what's the proof? And you're saying science.
There's
I mean,
no,
I don't know
again,
what scientists.
There's no proof. It's evidence. So the evidence that this hypothesis.
I don't. Wait. I don't know. Again, I don't know what scientists you're reading, which talk about possible worlds. I would really like to read them as well. But to my knowledge, they don't deal in modal logic. So, what exactly is your evidence that is necessary?
The scientists do deal in fundamental natures of reality. So if they say quantum fields are the fundamental nature of reality, that means all realities, not just hypothetical ones. The hypothetical ones don't exist in science. So in science, the hypothesis is quantum fields are the fundamental nature of everything, all energy, all laws of physics, everything. So there isn't a logical possibility of a non-thing there. In physics, this is everything. So this hypothesis that quantum fields are the fundamental nature of everything makes testable predictions, which are confirmed, and word games are not evidence. Testable predictions are. So we have reason to believe that quantum fields exist independent of our imagination. We have no reason to believe that your definitions do. Therefore, quantum fields are a better explanation than your definitions.
Okay. A possible world is a coherent way that reality could be. Okay. So what exactly is incoherent? If I think of a world where quantum fields don't exist.
Well, it's not. So I'm not arguing that it's incoherent. I'm arguing which is better, which is a better explanation. So coherency is not the argument here. I can coherently imagine a world with a pineapple, a magical pineapple that is the necessary being. That doesn't make a difference. What matters here is which is a better explanation. And the better explanation, what makes something a better explanation, is if one of the hypotheses has evidence to show it exists independent of our imagination. Quantum fields have that. God does not. And so even though there are many different interpretations of what coherence could be and what types of coherent worlds there could be, only one has actual evidence that exists independent of our imagination, and that's quantum fields, not God. So it's a better explanation of the necessary.
Okay, I'll wait. I want to focus on this point. I'll talk about your weird logical positivistic.
No, I didn't mention logical positivism.
Yeah, but you're saying the things that they used to say. But anyways,
I never said I was.
We'll tackle that. We'll tackle that.
So it's irrelevant.
We'll tackle that later.
Red herring.
We'll tackle that later. But anyways, for right now, define a possible world.
You can define it any way you want. I don't care.
Yeah, but you're making the claim that oh yeah, these are necessary, or these are better explanation of necessity. So
Sure. So based
define
on,
your term.
as I mentioned before, I don't think there is any necessary being. It's a completely garbage concept. I actually addressed this very at the beginning. It's a completely arbitrary concept. So I'm happy to grant for the sake of the argument there is a
Okay.
necessary being. But I technically don't think there is. I think it's a garbage concept that doesn't correspond to reality. The question is, even though it's a garbage concept that doesn't correspond to reality, which would be a better candidate for a necessary being, a quantum field or a God? So even though I grant that there is no necessary being, and so there is no such thing that exists in all possible worlds, a better potential candidate of something that would exist in all possible worlds is a quantum field. So I grant that your definition of a possible world is anything that any world that doesn't contain a logical contradiction, essentially, and that's fine. Now, I don't think there is any necessary being, but again, the better candidate for a necessary being is a quantum field, not a God.
Yeah, you talked for so long and you didn't answer my question.
I did. I literally
What
said
does it? What does it mean to be?
possible world is a
What does it
world that
mean?
doesn't entail any logical contradictions.
Okay, and quantum fields are better candidates.
So the candidate for a necessary being. So there are lots of worlds
Okay.
that don't entail logical contradictions. A world without God does not entail a logical contradiction. Therefore, there is no necessary being. That would be my argument. But let's say there is a necessary being. What is the best candidate for a necessary being? The one that most closely gets to this possibility, which would be a quantum field. Quantum fields are the things that instantiate space and time. So if any of these worlds has space and time, it has a quantum field. And that's a good reason to think that quantum fields are the necessary being. There is no evidence of minds existing outside of space-time, so that was a bad candidate for what a necessary being could be. We can imagine both. We can imagine both are necessary beings. They're both coherent. They're both don't entail a logical contradiction. Both are possible worlds with a necessary being of quantum fields and a necessary being of God. But so is a world with a necessary being who is a magical farting pineapple. What matters is what's the best candidate, and the best candidate is the one that can be shown to exist independent of our imagination, which quantum fields have. God and magical pineapples have not.
Yeah, this God is equivalent to magical pineapples.
Yes,
Okay.
100%, absolutely.
Of course, bro.
Well, do you have an argument against that?
But yeah, I do. But anyways,
Let's
I don't
not go into
want
faulting
to.
pineapples, please. And the proofs against faulting pineapples. Just stick to the topic.
Well, that is on the
Okay, yeah,
topic. It's literally called an analogy. It's a stalking horse, where you present one alternative, who is a reductio ad absurdum, to show that it shows equivalent evidence to the proposed proposition. So yes, literally.
It's not like the nerd emoji. Please just talk about the proposition.
That is the proposition, you idiot. It's called a stalking horse. Google stalking horse. Philosophical argument. Google it.
Yeah, but okay. I love you, Husham. TJump.
Yeah.
So you're granting that there's no logical contradiction. If I just disregard, if I make up a coherent way of reality, which does not contain quantum fields, there's a logical contradiction in that.
Only so far as there is also no contradiction in a world without a God. So there is equivalently no contradiction in a world without a quantum field as there is in a world without a God.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, but then the quantum fields are not a candidate. But then neither are candidates for if I grant that,
Right.
neither are candidates for
So
necessary
from my
being.
worldview, neither are necessary beings. My argument is that quantum fields are a better candidate explanation for a necessary being than a God, because even though I don't think there are any, I think neither, you can both coherently imagine worlds without either. Still, quantum fields are better than God because there's evidence they exist independent of our imagination. There is none that God does. So from my worldview, there are no necessary beings, right? But if we're trying to say which of these objects counts as a better candidate for a necessary being, one of the pieces of evidence is going to be, have we shown one exists independent of our imagination? Yes, that one's a better candidate than one we have not shown exists independent of our imagination.
Okay, but okay, sure. Let's get back to necessary being and contingent being definitions. Okay, let's talk about general methodology first. So, how do you know if a definition is semantically useful?
I don't care. Definitions are made up by people. I don't care if they're useful or not. All I care about is, do they correspond to reality?
Yeah, but so you agree that contingent beings and necessary beings give a meaning. They have a reference.
What that words have? No. A reference would mean that it corresponds to something in reality. These do not.
No, I'm using it in the way it's used in philosophy of language.
In
But okay,
a reference, like the sense reference distinction, a reference would mean that it corresponds
yes.
to something. Yes.
No, in the sense reference distinction.
That is,
But
is the sense reference
okay,
distinction.
yeah. So
But
you agree that these things have a meaning, which your mind can grasp, which my mind can grasp.
yes, words have definitions that are coherent. Yes.
Okay. No, I'm talking about these words specifically. If I say gabba, you know,
Yeah. So like all
that doesn't
English
have
words that you can go to dictionary.com and they typically have a definition are coherent in some way.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm talking about these two specifically, contingent being and necessary being.
Yeah,
The way that
I've answered
defined
yes. They are words in English. You can go to dictionary, you can Google the word and a definition comes up. Yes.
Okay, yeah. I just wanna be as clear as possible. Okay. Now, do you think contingent beings to some sense exist?
What?
Do contingent beings exist?
I don't know.
Okay. So a contingent being is something to whom necessity is not necessarily predicated, right? Sorry, existence is not necessarily predicated.
None of that. I don't like
so-
you. First, I would need evidence. Contingent necessary is a distinction that corresponds to reality, not just word games.
No, but we're just
Well, so my
we've
argument,
defined
you
it.
asked me,
We've
do I
agreed.
believe contingent things exist? And my answer is, for a contingent thing to exist, there has to be some property in reality for that word to correspond to. There is no such property that has been demonstrated. Therefore, it's just a word game. It's like asking, do I don't know, the Jaguars exist? The Jaguars don't exist, like the football team. Football team Jaguars. Do the Jaguars exist? No, there's no like objective property in reality to which the Jaguars exist. It's a name we have given to a thing that does exist, which is a bunch of particles and people in motion made of matter. But the team Jaguars has no property in reality to which it corresponds to. Similarly, the word contingent has no property in reality to which it corresponds to. We just use that as a label for things that do exist, like energy and matter and motion and momentum, and we call those contingent.
Okay,
But
yeah.
there's no actual property in them that is the contingency property. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. That's fine, okay. But we're not talking about that. You go off on tangents a lot. So let's just stick to the step-by-step process that I'm taking you through. So, okay. First, we agree that these words have a coherent meaning, right? Now we're going to talk about whether these apply to things within the universe or in reality.
Well, no, that's the part I literally just addressed. Like I can use the term like a
Yeah,
football team,
but
and that applies to something in reality, but there is no existing property of that football team. It's a thing we've made up. We've made up a label and applied it to something, but the label doesn't exist objectively. It's a subjective, arbitrary thing we've made up in our heads. So what we need isn't to say that the word can refer to something, because obviously it can. What we need is to know that there is actually some kind of a property, like a contingent property or a necessary property, that exists independent of the word we're using.
Exists.
Yes.
You're using that word there.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly simple claim that I'm making. There are some things which can fail to exist.
All things can fail to exist.
Fine, I will grant that.
Okay.
All things can fail to exist.
Okay.
Okay. So there are contingent things in reality.
Sure.
Because that's literally just my definition.
Sure, it's a word that we use to describe properties, but the contingency isn't a property. And as long as you grant that, sure, I'm happy to say yes. There are things that we use the word contingent to describe. There's no contingent thing that exists. There are things we use the word contingent to describe. Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine. That's completely fine.
Cool.
Okay. So let's go down like the second route. Okay. Do you agree, right, that if I put all these things that can fail to exist into a conjunction, right, and I'm not talking about every contingent proposition, I'm talking about contingent atomic propositions. Is every contingent proposition that runs into Cantor's theorem, but every contingent atomic proposition, if I put it into a conjunct, that can fail to exist.
I have no idea. Conjuncts don't exist.
So if I If I say this apple and this chair, right?
Yeah,
And if I
you've
group
made
them together.
a composition in your imagination, but that composition doesn't actually correspond to anything that exists. You just made an imaginary collection of two things, which is a conjunct. But that conjunct, like the term jaguars, doesn't correspond to anything in reality. There's no like conjunct in existence of those two things. It's a label you've made up in your head.
Okay.
Conjuncts
Uh,
don't exist. It's a label you've made up in your head.
yeah, but these conjuncts express meaning.
Yes,
And
that's
these
the
conjuncts.
in your head part. So if it's in your head, it expresses meaning.
Yeah, that's completely fine. But these conjuncts, right? This big conjunction that I'm making, it would be a contingent proposition. It's a proposition, right? We agree. It expresses meaning. So it's a composite. It's made up of multiple
Propositions can't be
up
contingent. I don't know what
connectives.
that means. Proposition is just a statement that describes something. It's not like the proposition is contingent. Like that doesn't make any sense. It's like propositions don't exist, so they couldn't not possibly exist.
Yeah, but the
Do you have
the way that I've
can we get like an
defined it is
argument or
clear.
something?
A
Like
contingent. Yeah, we're going through the steps of the argument.
well, every
Mr.
step you've
TJump.
had failed because it's just a word game. Can you just give like the argument or something so I can tell you which premise is wrong?
First of all, I've already posted my argument. But
I'm
that's the first thing.
looking
Second
at
thing
my
is,
stream, so I can't actually see the argument on. Can you just say it, or do you a shorter version, preferably?
okay. If the big conjunction of contingent facts is contingent, then it requires a cause. Big conjunction of contingent facts is contingent, therefore it requires a cause. The cause is either necessary or contingent. If the cause is not included in the big conjunction of contingent facts, then it is not contingent. The cause is not included in the big conjunction of contingent facts, therefore it is not contingent, therefore the cause is necessary.
Okay, but
can,
your argument is one, it's invalid because there's nothing in that rules out the possibility of just an infinite regressive contingent things. This didn't hear one. Secondly, I'd say I think the third premise was false. To say things are either necessary or contingent. That's not necessarily true. There are third options. The second premise I think is false. The conjuncts again don't exist, so you can't use them as a predicate like that. That doesn't work. So there's lots of premises in your argument that don't work.
Okay.
But let's stick with the first one. Why do you think that there can't be an infinite regressive contingent things?
Okay, first of all, you said that's invalid because of that.
Yeah.
How does that make it invalid? That's modus ponens. What do you mean?
It's like if the water is red, it must have rained. The water is, or if the grass is red, it must have rained. The grass is red, therefore it rained. It's invalid. It's what is that called? Affirming the consequent, I think. So because there are other alternatives that can explain the data that aren't the thing that's being concluded.
Okay. If P then Q, P therefore Q. That's invalid.
Pretty sure that's what affirming the consequent is. Affirming the consequent.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that would be against the
Q
sound.
then P. That's the one. P then Q, Q then P, something like that. So
yeah, that's not.
Well, that's what you're doing because you don't realize that there's another possibility that can explain all the data, and you're
That's not
admitting it.
what I'm doing.
So again, what in your arguments shows that there can't be an infinite regressive contingent things?
Okay. So first of all, I don't think you understand the form of the argument.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. What in your argument shows there can't be?
If P then Q, P, therefore
I don't
Q.
care. Show me in your argument why
not...
there can't be an infinite regressive contingent things.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, you don't know the distinction valid and sound, but that's fine.
No, I'm very familiar with those things, and I just showed your argument is invalid and unsound. But just go address the actual argument I did. Why can there not be an infinite regressive contingent things?
It doesn't matter.
What?
If first of all, by infinite regress, do you mean a hierarchical causal series or a linear one?
Either one is fine.
Okay. In the case of linear one, it really doesn't matter. whether the universe is eternal or it's temporal or whatever
Okay,
have you. It doesn't matter.
just to clarify, if there's an infinite regress of contingent things, that means there is no necessary thing.
No, I don't think that follows.
That's literally what I and most people mean when they say an infinite regress of causal contingent things. It means no necessary thing, no initial starting point. If it's infinite and there's nothing that created it, then it's uncaused, it's uncreated, it's unstarted.
Yeah, you're assuming a lot of things in there.
That-
You're assuming very niche views of causation, so it's the stuff like temporal causation versus
No,
atemporal
I don't
causation.
care. Like I can grant either of those things, and the argument still stands. An infinite regress of contingent things means this set of things was not created by a necessary being because it goes back infinitely. There's no beginning point to it. That's the point.
Yeah, but again, so if all you mean is a temporal sequence of events, right?
That was not
Where
created
one
by a
event
necessary being.
Yeah, okay. Let me finish. If all you mean is like an infinite amount of temporally successive events, right, where one event is partakes in causing the next event, this has no bearing on the question of whether God exists.
So specifically, as why I've said this like 3 or 4 times, when I say an infinite regress of contingent things, that means a set of contingent things that has no beginning and was not created by anything, much less.
But you're using again. So
this is what I mean
I'm
by the
not sure how
term.
familiar. Yeah, let me finish. I'm not sure how familiar you are with theology, right?
Very
but
familiar.
Theology doesn't regard most monotheists. I mean, it doesn't seem like you are, but most monotheists wouldn't say that God is sort of just the person who made the first event or whatever. They would say that God is involved in the universe right now.
I don't care if he's involved in the universe right now. It's
causation
irrelevant to the
arises
argument.
from
Do you not understand my argument? My argument is if there's a bunch of contingent things that go back infinitely and have no beginning and never was created, this could be a case where there's contingent things. Wait. Here is a logically possible world of an infinite amount of contingent things with no creator, no necessary being in this possible world, which means a universe with nothing but an infinite amount of contingent things that stretch on forever with no necessary being. If this is possible, your necessary being is no longer required because it's not necessary. Here's a possible world with just a set of infinite contingent things and no necessary being. And if this world is logically possible, that means there is no necessary being. Like, what about this doesn't make sense to you?
Listen, I'll repeat it again.
No. You don't get to repeat the same gibberish I just debunked again, as if you didn't just debunk it.
Yeah. It's because I feel like if I rephrase it and say it more slowly, you'll be able to understand it.
No, I do understand. I fully understand it, and I fully debunked it. Here is my argument. Here is a logically possible world with an infinite amount of contingent things, because your argument entails if there is a set of all conjuncts of contingent things. So here is a universe with a set of all a conjunct of contingent things with just an infinite series of them that was uncreated. In this logically possible world, there is no necessary being, yet there is still a conjunct of all contingent things that exist. So this premise where that
but you're okay. There's by virtue of what is it uncreated?
If it's uncreated, that's by virtue of it being uncreated is why it's uncreated.
Yeah, but you're saying that that's something which is an aggregate of something which is a collection of different conjuncts.
Yeah.
Where each conjunct can fail to exist.
Yep.
If you're like an indeterminist, which I'm guessing you are because of your love for quantum fields,
sure.
That'll present even a more serious problem, right? Because there's not even a necessary relation between each temporally successive moment.
I never said there wasn't a necessary relation. I don't care.
Yeah, but I'm saying that this will posit an even bigger problem.
Wait.
In other cases, a problem. Right? You have things which can
like logically possible worlds.
Yeah, bro. Let me finish.
Show a logical contradiction, not a problem. Like the fact that you don't intuitively understand the concept doesn't make a difference. It's still a coherently logically.
Yeah, I'm showing a logical contradiction.
Okay, what's that?
Okay, chill. Okay, so in some respect, right?
What?
Actually, in all respects, this conjunct is going to be completely created in every sense, right? So
what?
Each atomic proposition within the conjunct, right, is created, but you're claiming that the whole of the conjunct is uncreated.
None of them.
And I'm asking by virtue of what?
None of them are created. Zero creation.
No atomic proposition is okay. So there's an infinite regress of causation, but there's no creation.
Right.
There's no. Okay.
So like we
Why?
can even get
Like,
rid of
how are you
causation and
defining
just
creation?
say that there's a bunch of randomness. It's just epic randomness. No second causes the next second. None of this is relevant to my argument.
Okay.
Like I'm
Uh,
fine with it either way. You want to say that each second is temporally caused by the previous second or something? Like, okay, happy to grant it. A theory of time. Let's go. A theory of time on infinite set of contingent things still works. Let's go.
yeah, A theory or B theory, it's the same thing.
They are not the same thing.
It wouldn't matter.
They're no, it would matter.
They are not the same thing, but it's the same thing for the. It's the same thing for the sake of the argument.
Well, no, B
right?
theory is a block theory of time. You don't need an infinite regress for a B theory of time. But
yeah, block theory. Okay, there's
you can have a finite. It doesn't need to be infinite.
Yeah, but and even under B theory, there are still explanations across temporal, across the temporal dimension.
Literally,
But
they don't
anyways,
have that. Literally no.
Literally no.
Yes,
Okay.
like literally in a B
why are
theory
you
of time,
speaking
there
to me?
is no causation from point A in time to point B in time. They do not cause one another. Just
Yeah.
never.
Okay. So, okay. How exactly are you talking to me right now?
How am I talking to you?
Why are you talking to me?
Why for the debate? Like I don't accept the B theory of time, but that's not the point of the argument. Our point of the argument is here is a logical.
Yeah, but even under B theory of time, there is like even if time is an illusion or whatever, there is a flow which is the illusion, and this flow includes.
But it's non-causal.
A prior moment.
It's non-causal. The previous.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. Depending on how you. Okay, depending on how you define causation, it's fine. It's still there's still explanations involved between different temporal periods.
Okay, so here's
right,
here's
which
a
is what I
universe,
said before.
infinite contingent things, uncaused, whether you want them temporally causing one another or purely random, either one, both of these are logically possible. Neither of these have a necessary being. That shows your argument is wrong because here's a third option: contingent worlds with nothing but contingent things, no necessary being. Therefore, premise 3 is wrong.
Yeah. Again. Okay, so the universe you're claiming is uncreated.
Yes.
Or
I mean, I guess like
uncaused.
All natural things or something. Sure.
Yeah, is it unexplained as well?
Yes, it'd be a brute fact in this case.
Okay. I don't want to get into an argument for the PSR. That'll take a long time. But
I'm gonna say the vast majority of
just generally going
PSR because it's garbage. You can take that up with them.
Yeah, bro. Thank you.
There are actually polls that show this.
I'll be sure to every time I want to see if like a position is correct. I'll see what's the most popular.
Well, no, it's just
okay.
I was
accepting, 15 minutes.
I was accepting your premise that you didn't want to debate the PSR, and I was just saying there's lots of research in the field about the PSR and why it's rejected as just a reference. I was granting that we weren't going to debate the PSR. That was it.
Yeah.
I've seen the arguments. They're all bad. But anyways,
yes, the experts in the field who know more than you have terrible arguments. Phenomenal argument.
Thank you. Appeal to authority, populum, and anything else you want to add?
Well, it's not actually an appeal to authority. If you go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, ad verriculum and fallacies, section 9, I think, it literally says an appeal to authority is only fallacious if you don't actually cite real authorities. These are real authorities, so it's not an appeal to authority. Sorry.
Okay, but I can cite people that accept the PSR.
Sure, but I said the consensus of experts. So the consensus of experts is a body of evidence. The fact that there's
this isn't quantum physics. This is philosophy. Yeah, there's no consensus of experts.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
there literally is. Like there is a consensus that PSR is garbage, and there's a consensus there is no God. I think it's like 73% consensus. Consensus is anything above, I think, 67 based off of whatever, a supreme majority or something, super majority.
Yeah, but the consensus, right, doesn't matter in philosophy.
It does. Yes, it does.
It's not.
Yes.
It just.
Yes, it does. But
okay, so. Okay. So if you were living at Aristotle's time, you would. Sorry, not Aristotle. Let's say you were living at the Scholastics' time, you would have to accept God.
No, because the philosophy.
No, there's a consensus. I mean, all the scholastics believed in it, so there's a consensus.
Yeah, there's a consensus, but consensus in philosophy is relevant to conceptual ideas, not to what actually exists in reality. So, like, if I had a consensus on historians and they agree that Moses didn't exist, I would be like, yeah, okay, historically Moses probably didn't exist because the experts who are experts in that field conclude he doesn't exist. Now, but if the historians concluded that the universe was created 6,000 years ago, that I wouldn't have to accept because they're not cosmologists. So philosophers are not experts in what exists in reality, but they are experts in conceptual ideas of different other philosophers.
Right.
So if they have a consensus that a certain philosopher had an idea and that idea was dumb, I'd probably have to agree that, yeah, the consensus of experts look at this.
Wait. So you're
philosopher's idea
saying
is dumb. They're probably right.
so wait. So you're saying that I can't make let's even grant that I'm guessing you think all synthetic propositions are a posteriori or whatever. Even if I grant that, you say that I can't infer anything from my experience to something which is not within my experience.
Well, sure you can.
That's impossible to do.
No, I literally say the opposite.
Sure, I can, and that's what these philosophers were doing.
Well, no. It's possible to do it. They were not doing it. They were failing. But it is possible to do that. For example, I could say,
but it's a consensus, and they were doing it in a process of philosophy, and there was a consensus. So therefore, you must believe in God if you were living in the 15th century.
A consensus of historians saying something about biology is nothing. A consensus of historians saying something about history is evidence. So the experts have to be relevant to the field to which the consensus is about. Philosophers have a consensus about other philosophers' ideas, absolutely valid uses of evidence. Philosophers having a consensus about what actually exists in reality have nothing to say on that. They're idiots. So
yeah, but they have a consensus on one side of the philosophical debate.
That doesn't make a difference. Like, again, if the philosophical debate is about philosophers' positions, that's fine. If the philosophical debate is about what actually exists in reality, they don't get a say.
Yeah, but they're using.
I don't care. I don't care which philosophy they're using. If they agree on a philosophical concept that has nothing to do with what exists independent of their imagination, that's fine. If they're making some kind of a consensus about what exists independent of their imagination, philosophers get no say. That's the physicists and the scientists get a say on that.
But they're inferring things.
Yeah,
right. Like, do you agree that inferences are?
It can be if you have evidence of them.
Yeah. What's an evidence?
Novel testable predictions. That's good.
How? Okay. Okay. So if I infer, let's say, I infer Platonism from seeing particular things around, I now affirm Platonism. So now I need to like go and measure the abstract world to be able to affirm it.
You just need novel testable predictions. So you'd say, like, if Platonism is true, or I look around the world and I conclude Platonism is true, then if Platonism is true, here is something new about the world that I haven't seen yet, or that nobody's seen yet, that if I do this experiment, I will see it. And if that is confirmed, then that would be evidence of Platonism.
Okay. And what exactly would this experiment be?
Anything.
We've got 10 minutes, guys.
Anything that's novel, anything that we don't know yet. So, like, to give you an example, it doesn't need to be logically entailed to be an abstract object if the consequences can be observed by non-abstract objects. So, like, if I believe there's an invisible, non-spatial temporal being named Bob, and Bob will give me a gold brick if I pray to him, and I pray, and every time I pray, a gold brick appears, that's evidence of a non-spatial temporal being named Bob. Even though I've never seen Bob directly, I've seen the consequences of Bob because I made predictions that came true that weren't expected under other hypotheses.
Yeah, but if you do what I'm doing in my argument, which is inferring from general contingent things that there's a necessary being,
then you would need a novel.
Just the existence of these very contingent. Yeah, but the very existence of these contingent things, whether that's novel or not, I don't even see how that's relevant. But the very fact that these contingent things exist would just serve as the quote unquote evidence that you're asking for.
No, that would be post hoc rationalization. So you can start with seeing something you already see and then say, oh, the thing I already see is evidence of my hypothesis, which is evidence in no scientific field because we've proven that methodology is demonstrably wrong. So, like, simply taking the things you currently see and then using the things you currently see to infer something without further confirmation is a nothing burger. It's garbage. We don't care about that at all. Like in quantum physics, there's a billion different interpretations of all the current data. No one accepts them because they haven't made novel predictions yet to show that one is better than the others. So simply being able to explain the data we see, which would be the contingent objects, is nothing. It tells us nothing. To show that there's a necessary being, you need to make a novel, testable prediction about something we don't know yet, that nobody's seen yet, and get it right. Not just take the things we already know and try to explain them in a way that you like.
Okay. How do I? Okay. Okay. Hyperbolic space in mathematics, right? If I make conclusions about that, there's no. I mean, in the world, I can't observe anything which exists within hyperbolic space. So there's all of this entire part of geometry wrong.
Well, I don't know what you're asking exactly. Like, I think yes. Like, if it hasn't been demonstrated to exist, it's like hypothetical. I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, but if I make a general conclusions about a 10th dimension shaped object, which you can do very easily. I mean, it's taught in high school.
Sure.
Right, in geometry. I can't observe 10 dimensional objects. There's nothing novel that I can discover about it from the world. It's completely a project of logical reasoning.
Sure, then you have no evidence until you
Is
can
this false?
actually demonstrate it exists. You have to make a prediction. I don't care what the prediction is, but if you can't
Okay.
use it to infer,
So geometry is false.
no, geometry makes tons of predictions. What are you talking about?
No. So anything that's not three-dimensional, right? Anything that's not like Euclidean geometry.
No,
all of it is
multiple
false.
dimensional things do make predictions all the time. Like there's many dimensional versions of physics that make predictions. Like I don't remember what they're called, but the things precursors to string theory that don't include 11 dimensions. There are things that make multidimensional things that can be used to make predictions and inferences in mathematics that have been used in physics that were started by mathematicians, purely abstract, had no basis in reality, and then those were then used in physics many years later to make predictions that came true in quantum mechanics, which were then confirmed, and that's
Okay, but it's not true right now.
right.
All
Right.
this
If you
non-Euclidean
don't have,
geometry.
if you
not true.
didn't have any confirmation that these exist with empirical data, then you wouldn't have any reason to believe they correspond to reality. Luckily, we do have confirmation, but if we didn't, it would be irrational to believe that they
What's the
correspond to reality. What?
What's the confirmation?
I don't remember. I was doing this in physics a while ago. There are a number of mathematical models that were purely generated by mathematicians that had they didn't even claim it corresponded to reality. It was just clever math. And later, physicists applied that to quantum mechanics and other particles in physics and showed it made testable predictions, and those were confirmed. I don't remember which ones those were because that has been a while since I have done physics in college.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about these mathematical conclusions. I'm talking about specifically about non-Euclidean geometry.
That's
to
that's
my knowledge,
what I'm talking about. They used the non-Euclidean geometry to build clever mathematical models, and these clever mathematical models could then be applied in physics, and they were applied in physics to make predictions.
You got 5 minutes.
So before, let's say before this, I'm guessing this was recent, right? So let's say, I mean, non-Euclidean geometry has been around for a long time, like centuries. This entire time it was just not acceptable. Like it wasn't something that was true.
It was acceptable as a conceptual model. It was not acceptable as a thing that described reality.
I'm not talking about that.
What?
I'm asking, was this true? Based on just logical reasoning that these mathematicians were going through.
Well, so
was this true?
Again, logical reasoning is things can be true conceptually in your brain and not be true outside in the real world. And so you can have conceptual truths that are perfectly fine, like logical systems, systems of logic that are non-standard, many-valued logic, fuzzy logic, etc. And they're perfectly valid forms of logic that are internally consistent. But do we have reason to believe they correspond to reality? No. So they're perfectly fine logically. I never said there was a logical problem with Euclidean geometry, but there was a problem with trying to say that it corresponds to reality until such time as we have novel predictions to confirm it corresponds to reality.
Okay, so if I make a claim based on logical inferential based reasoning, right, which is normally based around like if I say that there are general premises which are true, then a conclusion necessarily follows from it. Even though this, let's say this argument is valid and sound, it's not necessary that it's true or it corresponds to reality.
No, like there's non-standard logics, like fuzzy logic. What's it called? Not dialetheistic, paraconsistent
Yeah, but
logic.
I'm saying I'm saying that these would be whatever like logical system is the right one.
Well, that's
right?
the part you need to
We
demonstrate.
got 3 minutes.
So if you demonstrated
Yeah.
that standard logic was the right one, then you could try to infer that.
Yeah, let's say I'm like a paraconsistent logician,
Okay.
right? And under that system, I've given and the paraconsistent logic is actually the right logic.
Okay.
Whichever model of paraconsistent logic you want to take, right? That's the right version.
Okay.
And I infer something based on a syllogism from true premises, and I get a conclusion.
Sure.
You're saying even though this argument will be valid and sound, and every prerequisite that needs to be true is true, you're saying this still doesn't need to correspond to reality?
It would need to correspond to reality. So you would first need to show that paraconsistent logic was the right one with some novel testable prediction. And then once you did that, you could then use paraconsistent logic to infer other things after you've had
2 minutes.
justification to believe it exists or
You're
true,
going back.
independent of our imagination, then you could do
Yeah.
that.
Okay. You're okay, but that's not like the question I'm asking.
What?
Okay. That's not the question I'm asking. The question I'm asking is whether a argument which we haven't discovered, but which is completely true, it's completely valid and sound. All the prerequisites and the assumptions in it are true. You're saying that this is not something we can rely upon until we have
Until we've demonstrated
evidence.
that form of logic is the one that is true in reality, then we could.
Yeah, how do you use the principle of explosion in reality?
How do you use
Like how do you
what? Like the principle of
Yeah,
explosion is
like,
the
how
fact
do
that
you-
in contradictions can lead to any proposition being true or something.
any proposition? Yeah. So wait, so that's like the sort of the basis for paraconsistent logic. How exactly do I test
That's
that?
dialetheistic logic. Paraconsistent logic has some true contradictions that don't lead to explosion. Dialetheism leads to explosion.
Yeah. So to avoid that was like the whole point, right? The paraconsistent logicians.
Right. So there can be
It's the ones I've
some
read.
true contradictions, but those true contradictions don't invalidate all things. So like paraconsistent
Yeah.
logic,
So they wanted to
30
avoid
seconds.
from like Aristotelian logic this being valid. So that's why they sort of created the paraconsistent version of logic. But anyways, like that's irrelevant. How do I test the logical system?
10 seconds.
well, you'd say if paraconsistent logic is true, then we would be able to like test it in quantum mechanics or something where we could see literally that something is both true and false at the same time, like Schrodinger's cat or something.
Okay.
Okay,
But
that's
that's time. Okay.
it's time.
I
I don't know if any one of you. Yeah, is anyone gonna do a conclusion, or is it just gonna be like a Q&A session? I guess.
I don't need a conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's the Q&A, anyone can come up and ask a question. A condition that I'm gonna put into the Q&A. You get one question, regardless of the answer. You move on. Okay. If you don't like the answer, you gotta live with it. That's it. Okay. And that's the either person, obviously.
So if I just say potato for every,
Just so that I don't want. Yeah, because I don't. I mean, yeah, but like the whole point is I don't want a discussion within a Q&A. Okay, like if you give a answer that we know is slightly relevant or mostly on point, it doesn't matter whether they disagree with it or not, or they want to have like a 10 million year discussion with you. I don't want that happening because we don't want another discussion. So the whole point of the Q&A is you ask a question, you get an answer, and if you don't like the answer, then you move on. If the answer is relevant, I'll obviously tell you to make the answer relevant. And yeah, anyway.
Sure.
You've got our first question from Kareem. To you, TJump. If TJump believes that all components of reality can be objectively explained through novel testable predictions, and that consensus by persons in the specific field is what determines which of two opposing ideas is correct, then which consensus of academics and what novel testable predictions back the claim that you make that the universe is uncreated and eternal? This dude just made a scientific discovery in our presence, and I'd like to see the evidence.
So there's a bunch of things that don't make any sense. Like first, I didn't say that everything in the universe could be discovered through novel testable predictions. Novel testable predictions is a way to justify beliefs. It doesn't tell us everything. There's obviously many things that we can't discover that would still exist. The evidence that the universe is uncreated comes from cosmology. Every single model of cosmology that's made novel predictions includes that the universe is either eternal or is the original thing and is uncreated. None of the models in physics have ever made predictions that include a god. That's why the consensus among physicists is that it's string theory, multiverse, many worlds, EPR, etc. None of them include a god because none of the models in physics that have made predictions entail a god at all. And so that's why, because all the parts of these models have been demonstrated to exist independent of our imagination, none of the parts of God have been. And so in physics, you're required to use things that have been demonstrated to exist independent of our imagination. Therefore, we conclude the universe is uncreated because that's what all the evidence and things that have been demonstrated to exist show.
Okay. Flame has a question, but I don't know who it's to. Flame, can you specify who the question is to? Also, if anyone here on stage wants to jump up and ask a question, just put your hand up and we can let you on.
You can just read it and we can both answer.
Yeah.
Quantum mechanics is deemed. This is Flame's question. Quantum mechanics is deemed the hardest part of physics. Systems with quantum behavior don't follow the rules that we are used to. They're hard to see and hard to feel, can have controversial features, exist in several different states at the same time, and even change depending on whether they are observed or not. How can we say that this is a better explanation than other than an actual intelligent design? Okay, no, so that's to again, that's TJump.
Because we can demonstrate they exist independent of our imagination. We can't demonstrate consciousnesses exist outside of space-time, and there's no evidence they exist independent of our imagination. So these things, these quantum fields that act all weird and funny, we know they exist, and there's evidence they exist. There is no evidence of minds existing outside of space-time. That's why they're better.
Okay. Again, I'm only going to ask questions that are relevant. Questions like, why did TJump get destroyed? I'm not going to read those to TJump. Wait.
I destroyed your mom.
Okay. Josta, can you can you give permissions for people to jump up? Because apparently they can't put their hands up. Hello, Josta. Josta, who?
Yeah. Joester,
okay.
I debated TJump. Can you like release my family now?
Right. Okay. Guys, it doesn't. It seems like you're not able to like jump on stage. I guess I don't know. I'm not like a moderator here, so no, we can't hear you, Josta. If you have any questions for now, please do text them and make them relevant, man. I don't want some, you know.
We could just move to like a regular event stage.
I guess we could move to Oh. Okay. Yeah, no, we could just move to like a normal VC, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So then I guess the stage is over.
Should we go to general?
Oh wait, no, actually we have Super Omar asking a really ridiculous question. I just want to point out that Super Omar does not know how to define Sunnism. And so his question should be
So should we like go to general or something?
Yeah, sure.
Yo, TJump.
What's up?
Why do you keep running away from Ask Yourself?
I don't. I'm always happy to talk with him.
You stop lying.
Well, like we haven't talked in a long time.
Yeah, last time you debated Ask Yourself bitched you, bro. He bitched you.
I crushed Ask Yourself multiple times. I think
No, you
I think
didn't.
we've had,
No, you
I think
didn't.
we had
Stop
like
lying.
four
Stop lying.
debates.
Stop lying.
I think there's 4 debates with
Yeah,
him.
and he bitched you in all 4 debates.
You can watch it yourself and read the
I
comments.
watched all 4 debates.
No, obviously not.
Yes, I have.
Clearly not.
Zonda, what rationale do you have for saying that TJump got destroyed? And then
No,
TJump, why do you...
I'm saying TJump got destroyed by Ask Yourself, a different person.
Well then, yeah, like, give your case for what, like, line of argumentation that TJump did not respond to, and then he can give his perspective.
Go watch his debate with Ask Yourself, and you'll know it.
Great answer. So do you even have an answer to what argument of his I didn't address?
Yeah. The video itself is my answer. Go watch the video, and you'll
That's
find
not
out why.
an answer. Which argument?
That is my answer.
Zonda, come on. The 12ers do the same thing, man. That's not a...
Look.
You can't even define feminism, dude. Stop talking, please.
Jack Hangstrike destroyed TJump. Ask Yourself destroyed TJump.
Which argument?
Avi
Which argument did they present that I didn't
Destroyer
address?
destroyed TJump, bro. TJump. All of your atheist peers have destroyed you in a debate. Every
arguments did they?
You are the worst. You are the worst atheist debater, bro. You're the worst.
Which argument did they present that I didn't address?
When you debated Jack Hangstrike, he bitched you on physicalism when he brought you the rule following paradox. He bitched you,
I
bro.
crushed him on that one because he rephrased it wrong.
What's
Ask
her
yourself.
name?
Ask yourself was in that conversation, and Ask Yourself correctly addressed my argument and said, "Hey, Jack, here's what he said. He said it's possible that there is a world with both a physical states that can be conscious or not conscious." And Jack couldn't answer. He just rephrased the same question. And Ask Yourself told him he was wrong. So your own little daddy that you like to praise specifically said Jack was wrong. But does anybody else have any questions?
What? Jack? Ask Yourself
I do.
after the debate said you lost. What?
TJump, I have a question.
What do you believe happens after we die?
Probably we go to the same place we were when we were born. Before we were born.
Fucking dick, my nigga. You don't know.
The womb of my mother. I don't go to the womb of my mother when I die. Before. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yes, yes, it does.
By the way, if Super Ahmad asks about 12rism, please mute him.
Wait, no, that's not a good...
TJ, that'll make you agnostic. It wouldn't make you an atheist because you're unsure of what happened before.
Wait,
so you don't need to be sure of things to have like beliefs that God doesn't exist. You don't need 100% proof to have knowledge God doesn't exist.
Yeah, agnostic.
No,
exactly.
No. So again, you
TJump,
don't
I
need
wanna ask-
100% certainty
wait,
to
wait,
have
wait,
knowledge.
one second,
You can be an atheist and know God does not exist, even if you don't have 100% certainty God does not exist.
We'll see proof of that.
TJump, I have a
Somebody
question.
asked for proof of that. Somebody asked for proof of that. Google fallibilism.
Yeah, that's a definition.
One sec.
Okay, one second.
You
one
don't
second.
need proof for a definition.
So
Yeah, okay,
this is
so-
called fallibilism. It's a position in philosophy. Knowledge does not require certainty. Therefore, you can know something like God does not exist without having 100% certainty. Google fallibilism. It's a legitimate question.
I want to ask a question. Wait, I want to ask a question. So, what do you think about the channel Apostolic Islam?
I don't even know it.
I know you subscribe to it.
I don't even know it. What is it?
Yo, TJump.
Hold on. Let me ask a question. TJump, I have a question.
Sure.
So, what past quantum fluctuations, which theories do you ascribe to?
None of the current ones. I think they're all probably wrong or incomplete.
But you made a claim that the universe is eternal. So, which theories do you ascribe to?
I don't subscribe to any of them. I do think the universe is eternal. I don't think that any
Based
of the
on
current
what theory?
models are correct.
So, based on what theory?
What about my previous sentence did you not understand?
There are theories past quantum fluctuations.
Sure.
And quantum
I
fields.
think in order to make the positive claim that the universe is eternal, you would have to subscribe to one of a set number of theories.
Well, that's dumb.
No. He's saying the fact that all the theories say this is evidence that this is true. That's what he's saying.
No, the evidence that it's true is from the Casimir effect and the novel testable predictions that quantum fields have demonstrated they exist. That's
what I just said. That's what I just said.
No, you said something about the other models. Like I don't care about the other models.
No, I didn't.
What? So my evidence that quantum
TJump.
fields are the fundamental thing is the fact that the models that make that say that quantum fields are the fundamental thing make successful predictions. Therefore, that's evidence that quantum fields are the fundamental thing.
TJump, are you an atheist?
Oh, what?
An example, you mentioned string theory. Is this correct?
Yes, I don't accept string
So one
theory.
second.
Though. I think string theory is stupid.
TJump,
Hey.
can I just ask a quick question? Can I just ask a really quick
Yeah.
question? When Abstra was talking to you about when Abstra gave you his argument regarding the third premise mentioning something must be either necessary or contingent, why did you deny that and say that there must be a third option? What third option is there in regards to necessary and contingent existences?
Rejection of necessary contingent being legitimate distinction in the fact that it doesn't have anything to do with reality, in which case there is no such property in reality, and so that would be a third option.
So are you
That's
saying
not
this is false, are you just saying that it's a false dichotomy?
Sort of. It's like I'm saying that neither one exists in reality. So it's not just like a false dichotomy, because a false dichotomy just means like you're giving two options when there's actually a third. I'm saying neither of these two things could actually exist at all.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as a third thing existing alongside these two.
Right. I agree.
I think we're squabbling over semantics here. I have a real question though.
Right.
My question is, do you have any thoughts on the belief that there are human beings with superpowers?
Okay, I have a question. I have a question.
I have the superpower
Can you prove? Hold on.
Can I finish?
Wait. So I have the superpower.
He's gonna make an imam joke. He's gonna make.
Bro, are you mentally
I
deficient?
gotta like answer.
woman?
I gotta have to give a chance to answer the question. So my answer is I have the superpower to tolerate annoyances. It's like it must be a superpower I have. So yes, I do believe in superpowers.
No, I didn't get to finish asking my question. What are your thoughts on the belief that superhumans exist who can manipulate the universe, but their only mechanism of saving?
Oh, I knew you could ask that.
I would say that there's no evidence that exists, and it's equally as plausible as
I hate
Islam.
Muslims. No, TJump, I have a question. During the debate, I heard you saying P then Q, P therefore Q was affirming the.
No, I said that
consequence.
backwards. So
Why
I
did you?
corrected myself the next sentence, and I said it's if P then Q, Q therefore P is affirming the consequence.
Yeah, but my argument
he never
was
said
that.
that.
Muslims
though.
are
He
terrorists.
never said that.
Do you get your philosophy off of psychedelics, or do you actually do your research?
Either way, if I got my philosophy from psychedelics, that would also be a superpower. So I don't know.
Are you a god?
I wish.
Actually, TJump, I wanted to talk to you about something else.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about your argument against God.
Which one?
That if we lived in the best of all possible worlds,
Okay.
if God existed, we would live in the best of all possible worlds. We don't live in the best of all possible worlds. Therefore, God doesn't exist.
So that presupposes that God is a perfectly moral being, which is something in Christianity. I don't think Islam presupposes God is perfectly moral, and so it wouldn't necessarily apply.
Wait, what? We agree with that. It's perfectly moral. But I actually wanted to talk to you about that. How exactly do you define the best of all possible worlds?
The best of all possible worlds is just a label for a world that maximizes whatever the moral principle would be, and I think that the moral principle is any involuntary imposition of will is immoral, and so the best of all possible worlds would be a world where there is no involuntary imposition of will.
Okay,
I was sorry.
Yeah, but okay, but I can't fly. So
right. So we're
is
not
that like
we're
an
not
imposition
in
of
the yes, that would be an imposition of will. So we're not in the best of all possible worlds.
Okay, so you're saying that any if I can't do something, right? It's not possible for me to do something that would be an imposition upon my will.
Yes, if you can't do something and that is not something you consented to, then that would be an imposition on your will. As long as it's specifically referring to yourself and your property, so it doesn't apply to other people. Like you can't do whatever you want to other people.
Okay, so let's say there's a universe, right, where God exists, and he's maximally powerful, maximally morally perfect. By definition, anything that he creates within this world will not have those properties. They will not be maximally powerful. They will not be maximally morally perfect, etc. Do you agree with that?
Sort of, but I'd say that would. So in this model, the definition is says there is an objective morality, and that objective morality states any involuntary imposition of will is correct. And so if you're rejecting that and saying God exists and he's a different standard of morality, that would just simply be contradicting.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that okay, anything he creates, right, will not be maximally powerful.
Sure.
Right, otherwise it would be identical to him.
No.
If it's not maximally,
So like that's a,
No.
a conflation that's actually incorrect. There can actually be multiple maximally powerful things in a universe and be different beings. That's perfectly logically consistent. I had a conversation with an expert on Thomism, one of the world's leading experts, Professor Rob Kuhn. Not your turn. So I had a conversation with an expert on Thomism, Professor Rob Kuhns, and we talked about having multiple necessary beings, and it is actually possible. Multiple necessary beings and multiple maximally powerful beings.
Okay, but okay, let's say like there's two maximally powerful beings. They can't cause each other.
They can't cause
Correct?
each other?
Yeah.
Well, that's fine because it would be a logical contradiction for a maximally powerful being to cause itself. So it's just like
Cause another maximally powerful being.
sure.
Okay, so anything which God causes or creates will not be maximally powerful.
Sure. Well, you could still create something that's
So
maximally powerful in the sense that it wouldn't be eternal in the
it
sense.
wouldn't be as powerful as him, but it would be like the most powerful it could be, right?
Sort of. It would exist temporally after him, but it could still be equally as powerful. But it couldn't like go back in time and uncreate itself, kind of a thing.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So there's a involuntary imposition on its will.
No, to impose on someone's will, there has to be a will, and you have to force it to do something it doesn't want to do. If no will exists and you create a will, that isn't an imposition because it didn't have a will and like a desire before you created it.
Yeah, but okay. And when we talked when the first time I mentioned it, I said like I can't fly,
Yeah.
and you said yeah, I agree. That's like an involuntary imposition.
Sure.
This thing, whichever thing God creates, will not be able to go back in time and uncreate itself. So there's an involuntary imposition on its will.
Well, in my world, you'd be able to do that if you wanted to. Sure. So in my definition,
Yeah, but that's a logical contradiction. We agree.
no. Well, in my world, you can have logical contradictions. Like I don't care. Like if you want a square circle or a round square in your universe, go for it. I don't care.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, so so God can cause a being, right? And then this being can go back and like I don't know, like kill God and then like take his place.
No. So again, in mine, you can't ever cause anything to happen to other people who are not yourself or your property.
I didn't know that.
Okay, that's fine, right? But let's say like God is for this example, for the sake of this argument, he's just some sort of mechanistic being, so he doesn't have any personhood or any consciousness.
Okay.
So in a maximally great world, we should be able to go back and kill God.
If it's not just a machine, sure, you should be able to go destroy the machine if you want to. In your universe,
Okay,
go destroy
so-
the machine. Have fun.
Yeah, but okay, but once we talked, right? You agreed that this thing wouldn't be as maximally powerful as God.
I don't know what you mean. So in my world, the best of all possible worlds, any being who was created could do whatever they want with their universe and themselves. So if they want to go back in time and kill themselves, they can do it. This maximally being definition stuff doesn't exist in my model. It's something that's Aristotelian.
Okay, but they can't. Okay, but you would say that in this world, they would have no that there would be like no ability to do harm to other people.
Right.
Right.
Unless they
Because that
consented
would be
to it.
removed.
Right.
Okay, so this being couldn't go in and okay, so it has its own universe.
Right.
It can't go to other people's universe and control that.
Correct.
Yeah, how is that not an imposition on its will?
Because will only applies to yourself and your property. So even if you want to do something to somebody else's will, the definition of will specifically only applies to yourself and your property. So an imposition of will is an imposition of something that specifically has to do with yourself and your property. It doesn't have to do with somebody else or their property. You can't like will to do something.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's limited to a particular amount of things that it can cause an effect. Right? Like there's a finite number.
Well, there's a finite number of things
but
that is
this
you
thing-
and your property. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But this is the most it can affect. It can't affect anything beyond this.
Right. Unless they consent.
Unless they consent. Yeah, sure. So there's an imposition on its will.
No, because again,
I
imposition,
don't understand.
will, the word will specifically only applies to yourself and your property. So for something to be an imposition of will, it has to be an imposition on yourself or your property. If it's somebody else's will or their property, then it is not an imposition of will, because imposition of will is imposition of yourself or your property.
No, okay, so I don't know.
Will
Like,
doesn't mean anything
I
you
don't
desire. That's
I
not,
don't see how you.
will does not mean anything you desire.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, but will, the way I think about it, is like when I will to do something. So it's like
Right, and that's not what I mean by it. So
the directedness of my mind. Okay.
So when I say
Okay,
it in
so
my model of a perfectly moral world, a will is specifically refers to only yourself and your property. So imposition of will is imposition of yourself or your property without your consent. It is not an imposition of somebody else's will. So the fact that you want to harm somebody else and you can't isn't an immorality because it's not an imposition of yourself or your property.
okay, fine. But the thing is, right? Its form is still constrained
That's
to a
fine.
particular amount of things.
Yeah, so it's
Right?
not the imposition of will doesn't mean you can do anything you want. That's the fact that you're constrained and there are some things you can't do is totally fine. Like I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. What about affecting the universe of other people where the universe of other people, like, I mean, first of all, bro, I feel like you're just describing a universe with like a bunch of gods, but like, ignoring that.
No. So none of them are gods because gods, by definition, are the maximally powerful thing, have the ability to control other people, and so you don't have that ability in this universe, so you wouldn't qualify as a god. And you couldn't like.
Yeah, but in this universe, obviously we're granting theism is true. So in this universe, God would exist.
Sure, but all of the other beings would not be gods because they couldn't harm the other beings. Neither could God in this case. So none of them would be gods.
Okay. Okay. Let's turn this back to God then. So God would be constrained to only creating this world.
If he's perfectly moral, that's his nature would only allow him to create this world. Yeah.
No, but but speaking like in within your definitions,
well, like
considering that this is the best of all possible worlds, God, unless you're like making an exception for God, God should be able to do anything he wants.
No. So like God would only do things that his nature that wouldn't like contradict with his nature. So if God's nature is, I don't know, green, he likes green, then God will never create non-green things because his nature determines him to do green things. And so if God's nature is perfectly moral, then he will only ever do perfectly moral things because his nature only allows for those options.
Okay. And these beings that he creates, they also have a similarly deterministic nature?
No, not necessarily.
Why?
Well, you can create desires, but if they can't, like, say Hitler existed, you could give Hitler his own universe, but he'd never be able to gas anybody because nobody would voluntarily choose to enter his universe. So he could have all the evil desires he wanted, but he'd never be able to force anybody else to be enter his universe. And so there wouldn't be any problem with creating a Hitler guy and giving him his own universe.
Okay, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, would the natures determine the actions of these beings as well?
I'm not sure what you mean there. So like the nature of a being determines its actions necessarily unless it's random. So like if God has a nature, like his personality, that personality is going to determine the things that he does. And the only way to like not do those things would be like a randomness generator.
Yeah, sure. But then, yeah, you're saying that the only way not to do these things would be if indeterministic causation is true. But okay, I'm talking about these other beings. Do they have a similar nature where their personality or whatever you want to call it determines exactly what actions they do?
Well, yes, I think every being is defined by that. Either it's their personality or something that determines them, or it's random. Those are the only two options for every possible being.
Okay, so even in this case, since God is creating their natures, right? God necessarily must be imposing something, right? He must be making their natures in a very specific way where they can only do specific determinate actions.
Well, no, that's not God doing that. That's just how reality works. So like, I don't think it's logically possible to create a being where their nature doesn't determine their actions. or it's indeterminate. Those are the only two options. But I agree that there is certain things they probably couldn't do, like probably create round squares. I'm guessing. I don't know if it's possible or not, but there would be like God couldn't create a being who was like didn't have an adult level intelligence. One of the rules would be all beings who were created would have an adult level intelligence, some level of rationality, independence. He couldn't like pre-program them to be slaves or whatever. And all beings created would have to fit that minimum level of requirement. And God couldn't or wouldn't.
Yeah, but they would still have like a personality. The rationality would be to a certain level.
Sure. Sure.
This would all determine exactly what actions that they do.
Unless there's an indeterminate randomness factor, which God could add just fine.
Right, but if there's an indeterminate factor there, why isn't there an indeterminate factor in God?
It could be. I'd be fine with that too. I don't believe in God. So,
but then your whole argument is flawed.
Why is that?
Then your whole argument is
why do you think that?
Because if it's indeterminate, if there is an indeterminate factor in God,
yeah, that's fine.
Then it's completely possible for something other than the best possible world to exist.
No. So the fact that there is an indeterminate variable in God doesn't mean that every variable in God is indeterminate. So like you can add an indeterminate randomness variable to diversify certain things, but that wouldn't imply that all things would then be diversified to every extreme. So you can have an indeterminate variable without making the entire system random.
Okay, yeah, but you're saying that in some respect, God can be indeterminate.
Yeah, like so in some property,
say
God wants to create ice cream, he's going to create a random flavor of ice cream between chocolate and I don't know, fruit flavored punch. There's an infinite amount of possible flavors between chocolate and fruit berry punch that don't include poop flavor. So of the infinite randomness that could be selected from this randomness variable, it can't select literally anything. It can only select a random variable between these options. So you can have a randomness variable.
Okay, but okay. Any of these options would be the best possible world.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you cash out? Okay, how do you cash that out? Like, how do you say that there's this world and then there's like this completely qualitatively distinct world, but they're both the best possible worlds?
Well, the best possible world is just any world that doesn't have any involuntary imposition of will. There's infinitely many possible worlds that have no involuntary imposition of will. There's lots of ways the world could be. Like each moment in time would, in the best of all possible worlds, would be essentially a different world that had no involuntary imposition of will. There's going to be an infinite spectrum of these. Like there's no problem there.
Okay, so there's an infinite amount of these, right?
Sure.
And there's some where God can create indeterminate factors in people's personality, and there's some in which God can't create.
That would be like the initial starting condition, whether there is a deterministic God or a non-deterministic God. Either one would lead to just different versions of the best of all possible worlds.
Okay, but you see over here, if there's only a deterministic factor to a thing's to like a thing, like there's only a determinate way in this in a way which this being can act, which is caused by God.
Sure, if necessitarianism is true, yeah.
I'm very confused how that's not an imposition on a will.
Well, an imposition of will is again you have a desire.
Yeah, you're directly affecting another thing's properties and all the actions that will come out of it.
No. Imposition of will is again having a desire and something forcing you to do something against that desire. So if you have a desire to eat chocolate ice cream and you just eat chocolate ice cream and you're determined to eat chocolate ice cream, that's not an imposition on your will.
Okay. So if there's like a brain dead person, right, whose brain doesn't work properly, and this best of all possible worlds, I can just go torture it.
Again, those can't exist. Remember, I mentioned that before. You can't create a being who has a less than adult level intelligence.
Okay, yeah, but like I could create, like you're saying, there's no problem if there's no desire that goes against it. There's no problem in this thing existing.
Right. So if there was a being that had no desires and didn't care if you tortured it, it wouldn't be wrong to torture it.
Okay, but there are beings like that in the world here. Can I go torture them?
No, because we presume that they don't want to be tortured. So like if someone actually wanted to be tortured, it would be moral to torture them. We can't read people's minds, and so we assume that someone who's in a vegetative state does not want to be tortured, and if they woke up, they would preferably not want a mutilated body, and so we take the active assumption that's probably you shouldn't do that. Now, maybe
Yeah,
they
but
do
why?
want that, in which case it would be moral.
No, but if like parts of their brains are destroyed where they can't have desires anymore, but they're still like living a life person, why can't it? Like I don't understand. Why would I have to presume that they literally can't have desires? Like that's included within
Well,
their concept. How
when they did have desires, their property,
like-
that's the body is their property, and unless they give you their body as your property, then you don't have any right to do anything with it. It's still violating their property against their.
No, but then that's a different. That's you're making a different standard for morality, which you're adding on top of it. You're saying that you need to only be able to affect like these things which are your property or whatever,
Right.
whatever that means.
That's imposition of will, yourself and your property.
Okay, but like you're counting desires as the only factor. Like surely it's not immoral if I go eat a cake.
Right. Unless it's not your cake.
Right.
It's stealing.
No, I mean like, if I just see a cake, right, which is in my house,
Yeah.
like I can just go eat it. There's something immoral about
Yeah, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, a person with no desires, because it has no desires. What's the difference between it and a cake under your view?
So in my worldview, every conscious entity would get its own universe, its own self and identity. And
No. I'm talking about this universe.
We're getting there. In this, well, again, this universe isn't the best of all possible worlds. There's immoral things that happen in this universe all the time. So if there is a being who is conscious, we assume that it doesn't want to be tortured. If it doesn't care one way or the other, and if it doesn't feel pain, then it's probably not immoral to do it. Probably still shouldn't do it, but it's probably not immoral. And if someone actively wants to be tortured and you do it, it's actually immoral to torture them. So if someone has zero desires, zero conscious intelligence whatsoever, it would probably be immoral because the universe didn't allow it to have an adult level intelligence. And if it had an adult level intelligence, would it want to be tortured? Probably not. And so we have to take anything that doesn't have the ability to consent and assume or treat it as if it was a morally relevant agent, and so we shouldn't torture it, because if we presumed we did give it adult level intelligence, it probably would not consent to this, something along those lines.
Yeah, but why are you adding that into your system? Like the only prior condition you added was that
Well, no, I added those conditions before. Like,
desire.
remember, all beings in the best of all possible world have to have an adult level intelligence. And so if there is not an adult level intelligence, including desires and things, then it would essentially be the same as a child or something that is unable to
Yeah,
consent. And so violating those things, even if they say they want you to or not, is still immoral. It's like child abuse. Even if the child asks for it, it's still immoral to do it because children don't have the ability to consent. And so something with no desires would probably be in the same category of things that don't have the ability to consent. And so for it to be okay to torture them, you would have to give them adult level intelligence and get their consent first.
Okay, so you're saying that if there's a conscious being, the only way you can do anything to it is if it has an adult level of intelligence.
Yeah, if it consents. So to consent, you need adult level intelligence.
Yeah, if it consents. This only applies to the category of conscious beings?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, but I still don't understand. Like, okay, so this thing, right? You'll be changing its properties if you give it an adult level of intelligence.
Sure.
Right? You'll be changing its nature, and then like whatever action follows from it in a determinate manner, you'll be changing that as well.
Sure.
But yeah, but I'm not talking about this other nature, which would have a different amount of actions that follow from it. I'm talking about just this brain dead person in front of me.
Right. So there's a difference between the best of all possible worlds and the pragmatic world we currently live in. In the pragmatic world we currently live in, there are lots of beings who can't consent. They don't have adult level intelligence. And so for those beings, it would probably be immoral to do anything to them because they can't give consent. In order to have it be moral to do things to them, they would need to give consent. And in order to give consent, they need intelligence. So you can either not do anything to them, or wait until biology gives them adult level intelligence or something, or technologically help them get there or something. But it's immoral to do anything to them until they give consent.
Yeah, but okay, but I don't understand why you're not imposing on their will because they can't have any will.
So again, will here would be defined as adult level intelligence, like, or consent. Consent would be defined as adult level intelligence, and in order to do it,
Yeah, but
to
then
somebody
it
else
exists.
requires consent.
Yeah, but then it exists without a will. So
then it would not have the ability to consent, and it would be immoral for you to do anything to it because it can't consent.
okay, but then okay, so you're cashing that out because but there are many things that I don't have a will, but I can do things to them.
Right. They're the non-conscious things. You can do whatever you want to non-conscious things. But if it's conscious, then it has moral significance and you need consent.
Yeah, but why?
Because
Like, okay,
consciousness,
like this thing.
Consciousness has moral value. Things without consciousness do not have moral value.
Okay, what's moral value?
Things which have significance morally. I don't know what you mean by that. Like things that can be affected by moral and immoral actions.
Okay, so things which you need to take into account when committing an action.
Sort of.
Okay. Okay, but consciousness is moral value. Okay. And why do other things not have moral value? What's like the relevant difference?
Well, that's the hypothesis. The evidence I seem to have of moral intuition, moral progress, moral dilemmas, and moral philosophy seem to indicate that consciousness is the significant factor in what morality is. So that's the conclusion I draw.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
going to
but
have to go pretty soon. Just FYI.
yeah, so I think I need to go sleep. But okay, just before that, real quick. If somebody gives the competing model of a possible world, the best of all possible worlds, right?
Sure.
And says that okay, the best of all possible worlds is instead the world like the way Leibniz and Spinoza defined it. It's
That's this world
based on the principle of ontological plenitude. So whatever follows the principle of ontological plenitude, it has the most amount of perfections. It's the best of all possible worlds. How would you refute that?
Well, that's just a definition. So best of all possible worlds isn't like a truth condition. It's just I'm giving a definition to what I'm saying is the world, the perfectly moral world. So it's not like they're not like different models. It's not like best of all possible worlds is like a phenomenon we need to explain. It's just a definition I'm giving to the morally perfect world.
Yeah, but they would say that since only things which obey this principle of ontological plenitude can exist, the morally perfect world that you're talking about would not obey it and would thus not be the best of all possible worlds.
Well, again, there's just different definitions of what best of all possible worlds mean, but there isn't like a true definition of best of all possible worlds. It's not, again, it's not a thing that corresponds to reality. It's just a label.
Yeah, but I mean, the definition they're giving, like a world with the maximum amount of perfections, I think that's a pretty fair description of the best of all possible worlds. And they would just say that, okay, your world, the one that you're proposing, is just impossible.
Right. But again, that's just, you can make up whatever definition you want. You can say the best of all possible world is a world full of pineapples, and that's fine. It's just a label. So it's like I can say Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a book about football. And I just take a book about football and label it Harry Potter. You can switch the title, whatever you want. The title isn't relevant to anything in the argument. It's just a title.
Yeah, but okay, but like here's the thing, right? What I'm saying is that if the best of all possible worlds is defined in this way, and this is the only world that can exist, when that's completely undercut your argument.
So if they were right, like if there was some definition of best of all possible worlds and that corresponded to reality, there's something in reality that makes this the actual best of all possible worlds, then yes. But there is no such thing. There is no actual best of all possible worlds. That's just a label for some property. In the case of Leibniz and Spinoza, it's about the maximum number of perfections. And they say the world with the maximum number of perfections is, by their definition, the best of all possible worlds. My definition is a world with no involuntary imposition is the best of all possible worlds. The best of all possible worlds is not a thing. There's no correspondence. One of us isn't right and wrong. It's just a label we're using to describe our preferred property that we think should be instantiated. And it's going to be true that one of them will or will not be instantiated based on whatever moral theory is correct. But the best of all possible worlds part is just a label.
Yeah, but it's completely irrelevant to what I'm saying.
Like it's like, are you asking what if their model is of morality is right and mine is wrong or something?
Not morality. Their modal metaphysics is right and yours is wrong.
Well, then obviously they would be right and I would be wrong.
Yeah, but in that case, anybody that holds to the principle of ontological plenitude would have no reason to accept your argument.
Well, no, like epistemology and what reason you have to accept something is completely independent from whether or not you're right ontologically. So, like anybody, the Satanist could be right ontologically, and Satan is the ultimate supreme lord of the universe, and we're all just wrong. But that doesn't mean there's epistemically reason to believe that. So, whether or not someone is right is completely independent of whether or not we have epistemic reasons to believe that person or not.
Yeah, but I'm saying if somebody believes the principle of ontological plenitude,
they
have
sure.
no reason to accept your argument.
Right. So if they have a different metaphysics and they have evidence for that metaphysics, then they would not accept my position. Sure.
Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes. So if you have evidence for a different model, then you usually typically believe that other model. Yes. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. Thanks for inviting me on, and I'll talk.